Hello everybody and welcome to OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and I'm here with the next round of the Limitless first qualifier. So 3-2 in the tournament. After a 3-0 start, unfortunately we've dropped 2 games, once against Obstagoon and once against Baby Blacephalon. This is going to be another Baby Blacephalon. This will be the third Baby Blacephalon of the day. And again, I feel like it's a matchup that's very swingy. One player just wins usually, in my opinion. But this game is actually one of those that is a little bit closer. It's a little bit more drawn out than just smack, smack, smack. There's a winner. There's a lot of intricacies sort of go on in this match in particular. I think it's one of the best games I play throughout the day. There are a couple of cheese moments anyway, because that kind of make it a little bit, like I say, cheesier, but it's still a pretty good game, I think, and it shows that the strategy with ADP isn't always just as soon as you can ADP, or like as soon as if you miss ADP early, it doesn't matter. That's I feel something that's shown relatively well in this game. So we're going second. Our opponent starts Fion. Again, we have deck lists at this point. So I know about these kind of tech cards. He's also playing a Finny of his own, probably for the mirror. Baby Blacephalon was one of the most hyped decks for this tournament, so he's probably looking at teching for the mirror. And he does grab a Zacian to start drawing through his deck. A lot of these lists play one Zacian, just so they're not passing on turn 1, they're actually having something to do. There's no Baby Blacephalon though on turn 1, which is a really, really good sign. Unfortunately, we don't have the best start, but even so, it's not awful. I do try and go for the Gust just to slow him down, but unfortunately I don't get anywhere. And then again, we just go for the Research. Unfortunately, we do hit the ADP and the Zacian, which is ideal. They're the 3 Pokemon you want turn 1, ADP, Zacian, and Jirachi usually. Absol would have been another nice pickup. But that being said, we do hit those 2, but unfortunately we do not get an energy for ADP. So this is what I was saying, where it doesn't necessarily matter if you don't get an energy on ADP turn 1, sometimes you can win games without that. We do have the Saucer to the Zacian, but unfortunately no energy from Intrepid Sword either. So I really am going to have to dig for an energy next turn. I do have Tag Call for Guzhala at least, so I can guarantee one if I don't want to discard this hand. Switches into a Jirachi, flints some fires out of his deck, so his Jirachi has much better targets for Stellar Wish, and is going to be looking to try and start setting up some Blounds to be able to deal with the ADP as soon as it comes up and uses Altered Creation. So that's going to be what our opponent is looking for here. Does indeed get himself a Quick Ball. These lists can play a couple of other 2 prizes. Usually Cramorant is in there, usually one Dedenne is in there. So all of these are kind of interesting options here. We know he has a hand full of Fire Energy though, so Baby Blacephalon makes the most sense just to be able to start attaching, looking for welders and things like that to, like I say, be able to respond to this ADP as quickly as possible to try and win back the amount of tempo they lose if we start taking 2 prizes on the 1 prizes. Does have the Beastbringer as well, which is a really, really big swing card. And then goes for the Intrepid Sword himself. Obviously, no attachments so far means that we cannot be using Altered Creation this turn. Unfortunately, I don't play any E-Switch or anything like that, which the winning list did, so maybe that's something to look into for the next Invitational. But that being said, I do grab the Guzhala from the Tag Call along with our second ADP, because again, you never really need the ADPs, the extra ADPs. I do get the Gust on the Zacian as well, which is nice to try and slow him down a little bit so he can't Stellar Wish, can't find ways of being able to really try and draw through his deck with Stellar Wish and finding more outs like that. So we do go for the Guzhala, and we are able to grab the Swell as well, which is another really big card in this matchup. It means they can't use things like Heat Factory, Hearth if they're playing it, Ultra Space if they're playing it. We have an extra sort of sort of level of safety net against that, which is nice. We do get an energy with the Intrepid Sword as well. And then I'm just going to pass it over, attaching the energy. Like I say, I could have done things a little bit differently and ADP'd for 1 here, but that doesn't really do anything in this matchup. So I'd rather get the guaranteed value on the ADP for 2. He does have switch to be able to switch back into Jirachi, so our catcher doesn't do much, and maybe, arguably, we should have saved it for when we're able to take a knockout on this station. But that being said, we have so much gust. We have 3 catchers plus 4 custom catchers, so there should be still plenty of live outs to be able to gust up these two prizes and win that way. He does hit the welder and is able to set up this Blown. If he takes the prize here, he kind of wastes his Beastbringer, but at the same time, you're also taking an extra prize for theoretically not much cost at all, so it kind of means that Beastbringer isn't wholly important anymore. And yeah, this is where this round unfortunately goes downhill. So this whole round got paused. Unfortunately, my opponent had no deck list, so immediately he was DQ'd from the tournament because deck lists were a requirement. We have a chat on Smash GG, and unfortunately there's nothing he can do. The judges have come in and said unfortunately it's going to be a game loss, but we decided to carry on playing just because it looked like an interesting game. Neither of us had ideal turn ones, so it was going to be interesting to see how this game went. So there's a little bit of delay while we're just chatting about that because neither of us really know what to do immediately. But yeah, we do decide to carry on playing this game, as you can see by the video length as well, because we both feel like it's an interesting game. Neither of us, it's not been a traditional ADP gets its GX turn 2, and then Baby Blacephalon gets the knockout turn 2. It's been a little bit slower, a little bit more slower paced, that kind of thing. So we both decided to carry on playing, even though my opponent's been disqualified, just to see how the game would have ended, which was fun. Obviously, it's an interesting matchup when it's not as simple as smack, smack, smack. So that makes it a little bit nicer to carry on playing. I do go for the Mawile, and we do hit 2 really, really good targets. The Cramorant, not so much, but the Dedenne not getting its ability is really, really big. 2 prizes, also really, really big, being able to force us to win that way. We do get the Absol down as well, and then I'm able to Mani him, and this is the key thing that you want to do against Baby Blacephalons. On the turn that you altered Creation GX, you want to Mani them to a low hand size, get an Absol down, that kind of thing, to really try and disrupt them, to try and make it as difficult as possible for them to use their Baby Blacephalon to knock out our ADP in response. If they knock out the ADP, it's a very, very difficult matchup, especially if they have the Beastbringer already. But if you're able to Mani them, even my opponent, who has a 3 energy Baby Blacephalon and access to a Jirachi, now has to find 6 energy and a switching card from a 4 to 5 card hand. He does hit a Flint. I remember being pretty scared initially because Flint is obviously a guaranteed 4 already, so he just needs 2 energy in the rest of his hand, provided he has 4 energy in the deck, of course. He's also playing the Big Blacephalon as well. So there were, to be fair, a lot of live 2 prize targets for this Mawile to hit. But yeah, the key one is the Dedenne. Getting the Cramorant down as well is really nice to just make sure his board is locked in case he runs a second Dedenne. Can't put a second Blacephalon down, can't put a second Jirachi down. It just locks his board up. If he wants to do anything, he has to use this Fione. Using the Fione means we get to move the ADP. So, you know, it's a really nice sort of difficult position we put our opponent in by also getting an extra Pokemon down to that he doesn't really want down in this matchup. Goes for a second Flint, but does discard an energy. So as soon as he discards an energy, I'm initially kind of scared because if he's able to discard energy, is he able to take the knockout here? And he does switch into the Baby Blacephalon, so I'm like, okay, maybe it wasn't enough. But then he goes for the Whirlpool Suction, meaning that he doesn't have the knockout on this ADP, which is really, really big. He's going to be taking 1 prize on this Jirachi. I could have sent up a variety of different things, but I think Jirachi was easily the weakest. Absol is obviously disrupting, and the rest are 2 prizes. And I have another Jirachi with a skateboard on board. So this is a pretty good spot we're in. We're able to take out his only Blacephalon, which is nice. We have lots of 2 prizes on the board if we decide to go down the 2 prize route in order to try and win the game that way. So we have lots of options, which is really, really nice here. We also are able to Dedenne as well, get rid of a couple of pretty bad cards. The Mani is still maybe relevant, depending on how the game plays out. But I want to now try and go for a more aggressive approach of trying to just take prizes as quickly as possible. So I decide not to money and just dig as fast as I can through my deck. I'm able to set up 2 Pokemon here as well, adding the last energy to the Zacian, along with 2 energy to the Mawile, and then take 2 prizes. So even if he takes 2 prizes here, it's not the end of the 3 prizes here. It's not the end of the world, because we have a couple of nice sort of targets on the bench. Unfortunately, we had no way of gusting 3 prizer into 3 prizer, but I think in this scenario we didn't necessarily want to do that, simply because we want to be able to sort of knock out the key threat each turn from now on, to force our opponent to have more cards to be able to respond on our Pokemon. He needed 9 energy to be able to knock out this ADP this turn, so he needed to weld a 3 plus then attach 3 to have 6 in hand to be able to Fireball Circus for 300. So we really forced a lot of resources out of our opponent. Goes for the Spit Shot to grab the knockout on the Dedenne, which is obviously a really big play. That means he, again, can just knock out this ADP to try and win the game. However, I've noticed there's no Gust in his list, so I have to actually promote the ADP for him to knock it out. So I decide to switch into the Zacian and take out the Oricorio. The Oricorio is the only thing that presents a real strong threat on the board because it draws 3 cards, which obviously helps him reach his combos. The Dedenne is doing nothing, the Zacian ends his turn, and the Spit Shot doesn't do enough to win the game. It might knock out some Pokemon, but it doesn't win him the game. So I think the card that wins him the game most is the Oricorio, so I target the Oricorio and knock it out with Zacian, meaning that he has to then find a knockout on the Zacian, which is a bit easier than knocking out an ADP, but I know if he knocks out the Zacian, I can respond with my own ADP or my own Mawile and knock him out. So I really put him in a difficult spot because I have 3 attackers set up that can all take out pretty much any of his Pokemon. Zacian is one of the tankiest things. That's one of the only things that can live. I think the Cramorant lives to a couple of things as well, but in general, we have 3 attackers set up, and I also have a lot of gusting left. I have the double customs in hand, so he also needs to hand disrupt me. So it's a pretty good spot for me to be in. It's unfortunate that this round was decided by a decklist error or a submitted decklist error because there wasn't a list submitted. But either way, it was a really, really interesting game. And like I say, I think in general, the Baby Blaze matchup isn't all that engaging, but when things like this happen, when both players miss their ideal turn 1s, it can actually get pretty interesting because the tempo swings are really, really quite weird. Obviously, there's not much he can do here. He needs to really take out this ADP, but doesn't have Gust, so he needs to find a way of tanking at some point during this turn. He drops a Broken Heart. I don't know whether that was because he forgot about the Swell or something. I'm not sure. But either way, he ends his turn knowing that it's going to be GG from here because I'm able to retreat into any of my attackers and just take out this Jirachi for my last prize. So yeah, a really interesting game. Not the way the game usually falls, but that being said, an interesting one nonetheless. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and look out for round 7 coming up soon for the first Limitless Qualifier.